So hi, welcome to this podcast. I'm Shane.
I'm Glory.
And we're here with.
And I'm Garrett from the band Silent Planet.
All right, some questions to say about the upcoming album, SUPERBLOOM. So congrats on that, by the way. How do you feel about the response to the announcement so far?
Feel good about it. Well, not the record. I only have spoken to it, a handful of journalists who have heard it. However, I have had the immense pleasure of being able to had the immense pleasure of being able to see what people think of the singles. We've put out Antimatter, Collider, Signal, and Anunnaki. So I guess 4 songs over the last year and a half have come out, and the rest of the record is yet to be heard yet, and really curious what people think of it. Have you heard the record? Did they send you the record?
We did hear it. And holy fuck!
Oh, let's go! Hey,
holy shit!
Okay, so is this? I'm not. I promise I'm not trying to like turn the tables too much here, but I would love to know what you think of it. But I mean, whatever off the cuff. You don't have to say nice things. I just am curious, like what your experience of it was like front to back.
It was a total fucking ripper. It was incredible front to back. Gloria and I joined the Zoom to then, sometimes we'll discuss like the music, while we're waiting. And we were both just like, dude, the Silent Planet. And both just stopped and looked at each other and we were like, it's fucking awesome.
Yeah, that shit is so crazy. My favorite track was the second one. I believe it was
Offworlder.
Offworlder.
Yeah.
Holy fuck. That
Dude,
song.
Thank you.
I could fucking praise this album until I run out of breath. Crazy fucking record. Well done.
Okay, so you're gonna get a kick out of this.
Okay.
I got texted by the director of the Offworlder video. So when the album comes out, it's gonna come out with the video for Offworlder on November 3rd, like a week from now, basically. And he actually texted me and he was like, so going through this edits and just wanted to like let you know that this video will not be able to be monetized on YouTube.
No.
It's very violent. The music video it's crazy, but we got really lucky, and our one of the 2 videographers, he lives in Atlanta. Well, they both kind of live in Atlanta, and as you may know, Atlanta's become kind of like the new Hollywood, especially for like action and like superhero. Like Marvel does all their stuff there, and and because of the writer's strike that's happening, there was a bunch of stunt people that were like waiting to work that he knew some stunt people, and he's like, hey, do you want to do like a little project? The budget's not great, but it's this metal band and it would be cool. And they were down to do it. So we got a bunch of stunt people that work for Marvel, including one of the main stunt ladies like in the industry. She's the protagonist.
Yeah.
And then this guy who choreographed John Wick 2 was down to like choreograph the fight scenes. And so basically it's like a lady versus a SWAT team, and it's just extremely violent and crazy. Like it's like, because I like kind of had this premise, but I didn't really think about the brutality of it. I was just like, yeah, like this lady like fighting through a SWAT team. And then I saw not the final cut, but like they did like a run through of the sequence, and I was like, oh my gosh, people are gonna I'm gonna have to tell my mom to not watch it because it's like it's like rated R violent scene, and it fits within the larger narrative of SUPERBLOOM and stuff. But anyways, just thought I would tell you that since you enjoyed the song, there's a very crazy video that goes with it that I'm excited for you to see. So
Yeah.
I will be tuning in for that. It's crazy you say John Wick. I'm like a fucking massive fan of him. I have a little picture of him with his little dog back there. So this is
oh my gosh. Yeah. I was admiring all the art on your walls. That's awesome.
Thank you. I'm so fucking excited to see what you guys have up your sleeve for that.
Thank
cool.
you. Thank you so much. Well, thank you for listening. So Offworlder stood out to you. That's sick. Shane, what stood out to you?
Listen to the record once, usually don't come away with like standouts. I was listening to it. I didn't have the track list up. So I'm just at the point right now where the album rips, and we'll be streaming it a bunch when it comes out next Friday.
Thank you. I can't wait to put it out. And that's I'm glad. It's cool that you checked it out. I find like half the people that I talk to in interviews have like heard it, and then I remember I talked to one person. Oh, have you heard the record? And they're like, no, I haven't. And then they like saw their email, like, oh, I guess I got sent it. I'm gonna check it out afterwards. So there's only been a couple folks who have heard it yet. So it's as you can imagine, specific, not the singles that have been out. You know, I've just talked to different people and heard different people's thoughts on it, but specifically for this new anything that hasn't been heard yet, it's just cool to be able to talk about it, because like only a few people besides my bandmates have heard it. So it's just kind of been sitting on it forever, and it's like cool to finally talk about it.
Yeah, well, we're gonna dive deep into it, and we're gonna know what you're talking about because we heard it.
Let's dive in.
So to start off, is there any meaning behind the album title or cover art?
So SUPERBLOOM was so SUPERBLOOM is like a phenomenon that happens in the California desert for like a week, and satellite images, it looks like the earth almost has like a bruise. Like if you look at the land, it's like purple and green and blue and like a really weird like welt that you might get like on your inner arm or something. It's just like all these crazy colors, and that's what the earth does, and the like there's all these wildflowers that sprout up in the desert. But what's funny is I was it's just part of the concept record is this concept of the super bloom, which isn't that, and I'll get into that in a second. But it's funny, as I was writing this, and super blooms like it just seemed like the right concept for basically this person, this teenager who comes into contact with an alien spore from a meteor, and then the super bloom is how this teenager describes the process of their mind sort of opening up to new dimensions and stuff. Is the super bloom. But what's crazy is, as I was writing about super bloom, I like Googled it, because I think I was trying to see if it was like one word or two words. And I'd heard that phrase before, and I Googled it, and there's an article that had been posted an hour ago from some like major website that said the California super bloom has officially started. And it was so weird to be like, wow, like this, like right when I was like started writing this thing is when the super bloom started, and we were in California. So that was a weird little synchronicity moment where it kind of confirmed my belief that would be initially just the name of the song. And then I showed the record to my friend Rory, the singer of Dayseeker. And he was like, that needs to also be the album title. And I said, all right. And yeah.
All right.
The rest is history.
Fair enough. Yeah. You mentioned, is it when you're writing, and you mentioned this concept record, did the concept come first and you write the songs around it, or were you building the songs and the concept kind of came into the fold with that?
Yeah, so it's funny. This is the first like, I would say, like true concept record we've written. As far as, I mean, other records had themes, right? Like the first Night Got Slept was about like women in history who with their love had changed the course of history and challenged the violent hierarchies of our world. And then in 2016 it was about like a walk through like a mental health panopticon sort of. And in 2018 it was about like the apocalypse and various like kind of visions of the end of the world as we know it. 2021 Iridescent was kind of like an introspective look into my kind of deteriorating mental state as I had known it. But this one was the first time, first of all, we ever like wrote a sci-fi record. It's like, I mean, I don't even really like calling it sci-fi, because it's not really, it's maybe fiction, but some of it I've kind of come to believe is to be true about aliens, and we can get into that. But regardless, you could say it was about the paranormal, I guess. and a story about someone encountering the paranormal. And so yeah, there was kind of a story that I wanted to tell before like I really the typical process of like getting like different song demos and then figuring out the lyrics for them. Because I'm one of those people, I don't really write lyrics for songs until I have the song. Because I mean, sometimes like, you might have like an idea that comes to mind and you write like a little poem in your phone. But like to actually like the real lyrics process starts when I get the song, because I think the music already kind of tells a story. And I think lyrics are always better if they feel like they were made intentionally with the music. So so I kind of had the story in mind and then was getting demos and figuring out like, okay, like which chapter of the story is this kind of thing. So
you guys have always kind of danced around the idea of the concept by having concepts within the record, but it not being like a story. So bringing in the element of the story, did you find any sort of difficulty in like expressing yourself through the music, since you are like now writing around this story as well?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I think this record was the most difficult for me because it's all kind of out there material. I think I don't know if it's like inherently easier or if it's just easier to me because it's what I've done, but I find it I guess I find it a bit easier to like pick very specific kind of disparate topics, whether it's like in history or it's like a social issue or like something that I can like something that's kind of objectively happened or happening that can be like kind of readily defined. And also just kind of more it's easier to find sources on it, and it's easier to just kind of like like if you have a song and you're like, okay, this one's going to be about the Spanish Civil War and this one's going to be about the LGBT struggle or something, those topics like have so many differences that it's easier like when you're writing to be like to be like, oh, I'm kind of stuck on this one, I'll go over here or whatever. And with this record it was a bit more like, oh, I want to say this here but maybe it should go over there. And I think that the boundaries were less defined, which I found to be a bit more challenging. And I also should say that, and I think I've spoken with a number of singers who have had the same experience. Writing lyrics can get more and more challenging the longer you do it, because you've already like said the first things that kind of pop into your mind, whether they're you've just like the first record you write, say you write it at the age of 22 or something, it's like, okay, so you had like 22 years of life to pull from, and then like if it's a whole 10-11 songs, you might kind of use a lot of the top shelf stuff, and then you're like, you have to dig deeper every time. So I think every record is a challenge, but I think that we wanted to do a very different topic because we've never wanted Silent Planet to be something that you could easily define. Like we didn't want Silent Planet to be like, oh, this band writes about social issues and history or mental health. Like we wanted to challenge ourselves to like go into a different territory. And it's funny because I think in metal, maybe it's even more common that people write about like sci-fi than they do write about social issues or like history. And so for us, it was kind of like, but for us, it was very, very different kind of topic and territory. But, I think ultimately, things you're going through in your life and things happening in the world still kind of bleed into it, but it was definitely, it was a new challenge, and there were many days of working on stuff that like I would be at my computer for 8-10 hours trying to like do stuff and be like, whoa, nothing happened. This is tough. Writer's block can be so real. But
for sure.
We kicked this off that the rollout has been a minute. So I'm curious as to, the last record came out in 2021. When did the process for this one start and when did it wrap up?
Actually, the process for this started before your 2021 record came out. And so Iridescent came out November. We have a habit, I'm realizing, of putting out records in November.
That's okay. It's right near my birthday. I love it.
I feel like we're all, this record included. I was like, oh, let's come out with it in like August, and then it was like, no, it's got to be September, and it's like, it's got to be October. And now it's November. Oh, it's funny though, is it ended up coming out on the 20. It ended up coming out on the 20. I'm sorry, not 20. It came out on the first anniversary of our van accident that happened on November 3rd. So that was kind of interesting, because there was some stuff that happened in that van accident that really kind of shaped us and shaped the record as well. But yeah, to answer your question, we started writing this in July of 2021. The process of writing this was like, we also did something else that was very different for us. We wrote this in like chunks, where like we would go to the studio for a couple weeks in LA with Daniel Bronstein, and we wrote a lot of it in, we wrote a lot of this record like in the moment, like Mitch, Alex, primarily is Mitch, Alex, Dan, and myself, like in a room, working on music and stuff like that. Those guys more the music, and me more the lyrics. And a lot of times I would just go to a different room of the studio and kind of try to figure out the vocal stuff. But and then of course they would help me when I would be in the booth and get stuck. But yeah, so we were kind of like doing it in the room with Dan, and that was a new process for us, because it is very in the past we were kind of like all of our records technically had producers, but we kind of had like such a firm grip on what we wanted to do that a producer would maybe be like, oh, change like that note, or like change the phrasing a little bit. But the production would be, it was marginal how much we would be produced as a band. And now I can definitely say that there's been a big change. And I find that our band is with Dan. Dan was kind of like a member of the band. Like he was involved heavily in everything. Definitely not, to be clear, it wasn't one of those like Dan didn't like write the record and we just showed like it was. I think that it's very often it was like Mitch trying something and then Dan being like, try that. And then Mitch being like this, and then Alex, but if I do a beat like this, and then Dan's like, yeah, but then that means we should do this. And it really was like a kind of a triangle thing musically. And I'm kind of like, I'm not very musical myself, so I'm kind of like in the corner being like, yeah.
That sounds great.
Specifically like when antimatter, it's funny because I didn't write really the music, but I was like, I really want like a very synthy, like let's like start with the synth, because it's always been like starting with guitar. And then Mitch wrote that, and I was so into it that like I literally went to another room and like I took a video of it like on the soundboard. I didn't even want to make them have to like make a file bounce and kill the vibe for 10 minutes. So I took a video, I went to the other room, I played the video over and over again. And the whole first part before the in over my head, pretty much none of that changed. That all pretty much just stayed the same. So like I like wrote that, came back, and we demoed it out, and ended up just using the demo take, which is funny because I was reading it off of my phone. I had just written it, and I was like sitting down, and I was like kind of like I wasn't even really trying to sing. It was like a breathy, lazy talk sing. And we ended up just using it because we found that kind of like delivery with the vocal effect that Dan put on it was the move. Yeah. And it's just funny. That was kind of a spontaneous thing. But all that is to say, yeah, this record, it kind of happened in chunks. Like that chunk that Antimatter came right before we flew to Australia, New Zealand, and then came back to the States on a tour. And that's when our band flipped. And weirdly enough, the whole Antimatter kind of took on its own life after our van flipped, because the whole like I'd give anything to be in over my head thing. I was like listening to that the night of the crash, and then when we crashed and I like had the concussion and I was like seeing all the colors, it was like, whoa. And I that's like pretty immediately realized that song I mean, it does fit into like a greater sci-fi kind of premise of the album, but also um, uh, one of the meanings of it has to do with the surviving the van crash. So yeah,
Absolutely.
All right. So, what song off this album took longest to write, and which one is your personal favorite?
my personal favorite is definitely Super Bloom,
Mm-hmm.
and that song started off as that was actually, there was an original batch in July of 2021 of stuff we started working on, and that was one of them. The other was Signal, and the other was became Anunnaki. So it was initially like the Super Bloom existed in some iteration for a really long time, but it wasn't until and this is crazy. I haven't honestly even really thought about this until now. Super Bloom didn't really come to fruition until probably the song Super Bloom, until like the last few days we were in the studio. It's the very last thing we did.
Whoa.
And I find I'm starting to find now that this is like our fifth record, I'm starting to find a pattern where a lot of times like the best or like the most meaningful stuff is the stuff that like you have to keep putting it down
Mm-hmm.
and then keep revisiting it. And it's that process of like letting it go and picking it up and letting it go that I think a lot of the good stuff happens. And so I can definitely say that Super Bloom, the song, is my favorite thing that we've ever made as a song. I feel like it has like all of our influences at once, if that makes sense. Like that song kind of encompasses like all my favorite things about music. Like the first part kind of is like a catchy sing along, like could be like a Jimmy Eat World song, and then it turns into like a weird kind of Radiohead build up thing, and then it turns into just kind of like a big noisy, you know, like guitar pedal driven like release moment. And I think that like when I think about my favorite music, it would be probably those three things, like kind of like Jimmy World alt rock, and then kind of experimental stuff like Radiohead, and then like stuff like Holy Fawn, or like This Will Destroy You, like big sound music. And so that song kind of became, you know, became my favorite part of the record, because it was just like, oh, this is everything I like in music happening at the same time, I guess.
Oh yeah.
For sure. And what was it about that song that kind of made you keep picking it up when you kind of hit a wall with it?
I think it was just like I you know I wish that I wish Mitch was here, because Mitch could really speak to that. I think Mitch was the first person to really like Mitch just kind of felt like there was some kind of musical magic to it, you know. Uh and yeah, I guess Mitch would really know the answer to that question, but if I had to guess, I think he just felt like the kind of the chord progression in it was like just kind of rides the line of what Mitch likes, which is something that's like musically like kind of sneaky musician music. Like Mitch isn't a big fan of music that's like, watch me shred up and down the keyboard like I'm the fastest guitar player, you know, that you'll ever hear. Mitch is a fan of kind of like the subtly complex stuff, like Radiohead or stuff that like when you know, if a fan wants to pick it up and play it, they might realize, oh, this isn't as straightforward as I think it is.
Yeah.
But that's like what, and I think that there's just some of that in that song. And yeah, but it's funny. I had an idea, and I was like, this happened a lot on the record actually, where like I would have a vocal idea for one part, and then Dan's like, no, this is the chorus, and this like I would have like a chorus, and the chorus would be like, he'd be like, dude, the chord, he would like he'd be like, yo, the intro's like, that's the good part, like your chorus is whatever, we can get rid of that, use the intro as the chorus, and then build a new intro. And Dan was really good at just kind of identifying that. And but yeah, specifically that chorus and just how it all happened was like there was a moment where I was like, oh man, this is my favorite thing we've ever done. And that's cool because I can say that honestly. Like I don't think I had a single moment like that on Iridescent or When the End Began, our third or fourth record. Like I like those records, but like we have a couple songs on Everything Was Sound that I think I still, if I was being honest with myself, like personally didn't know if we ever topped it. There was actually probably like 3 or 4 songs on Everything Was Sound that I was like, oh, this is the coolest thing we ever made. First Father, Inherit the Earth, Inhabit the Wound, for sure. And those songs are definitely not our most popular, but just as far as like what I love about music, those ones like felt like they all came together. And so when SUPERBLOOM happened, it was really encouraging for me, because I think I sometimes would be like, am I just jaded? Like, am I not going to be satisfied with anything? And when we did SUPERBLOOM, it was a cool moment where I was like, no, I hold ourselves to like a really high standard, but I can truly be like satisfied and okay with something. I just it just needs to be good.
Yeah.
I think that getting Dan involved with this record, it was so cool, because Daniel Bronstein, the producer, we worked with him all the way back in 2011 we first worked with him. And so we've known him for a really long time, and we've been friends for a long time. And we just kind of like we did a few records over in New Jersey with Will Putney, and that was cool, and we did different things. And this record we told, like, even before so Dan Bronstein kind of saved Iridescent. Not going to really get into all the details there, but we had some stuff go wrong, and we just needed someone else to step in on the project and kind of like fix something. And Dan showed up, and he just like he made the whole thing happen. And it's just he's an amazing dude. And we've really, over the years of not working together, our friendship got a lot closer to the point that we actually ended up I ended up at like his wedding, and it was like the most beautiful wedding I'd ever seen. And it's just like our friendship grew a lot. So going into this record, it was like just working with someone who you know really well. And I think I say this a lot about Dan. I'm a big fan of his work. Even when I started managing Dayseeker a number of years ago, and my first thing with Dayseeker, I was like, you need to I really wanted that band to get produced by Dan, because I just knew that he would do a great job with them. And then they wrote Sleep Talk together, which really kind of put them on the map, and then after that, they did Dark Sun more recently. And so just working with Dan was like inevitable for us, but like it just came together so well, to the point that like we are just like we feel like more than ever that like, yeah, I mean, he's just kind of our guy. And I know that we're gonna look to work with him more in the future. And but I think because he's known us for a decade, he kind of understands where we don't really see the full picture sometimes with songs, and where we do. And I think that sort of approach from him, of just kind of like helping us to like really grow our sound, really showed up huge in this record, because there was a number of times that like I look back at the songs as we would have done them, and they could have been like cool, but in more of like an obscure kind of in the way that Silent Planet's been, I think, which is like you having a unique, I think we've never struggled as a band to have like a unique sound, but I think we have I think struggled to like really like bring it all together in a way that like that you can on first listen kind of enjoy it. And not have, we always joke that like we were the epitome of like a band that's like, no, trust me, they're great. We're we had a base of listeners who really believed in us and what we did, but we didn't have like a lot of I don't know. I think we just had a really long ways to go as far as like finding the means of like our sound and what it means to like really like put down a record where like you don't have to listen to it 10 times to like it. You can just like on first listen kind of get what we're going for. because I think sometimes we get a little bit too, whether it's me like trying to like write like the weirdest delivery or like the weirdest lyrics, or like Mitch wanting to like make everything super intricate. I think sometimes we would kind of just get lost. We wouldn't see the forest for the trees kind of thing. And Dan really helped us with that. And just like just crazy grateful for that dude. So, yeah.
And I think that was probably one of the most mind-blowing things, like at least for myself and maybe for Glory as well, going into this record, because like Iridescent, great album, and we covered that on our show, and we were both like, this album is great, but like kind of confused on the first listen, whereas this one
totally
is just like right from the get-go, you just get it. And like that's exactly what you were saying. You just like it, just makes sense.
Absolutely.
Well, that means a lot. Thank you. And I very, very thankful for Dan for also just putting up with us, because I can't tell you how many times he would be like, we would be like, oh, we could do this, we could do that, and all this like weird stuff, and he would just be like, dude, you guys like really need to rein it in here, like we're just kind of all over the place. And he was able to really just kind of identify where like we needed to rein things in a little bit. And just he's amazing. Like honestly, I cannot say enough good stuff about him. He's one of the best people I've met. And just it's the first record where we had a producer who was like, he was like a member of the band, like he was like his contribution is that of like the band itself. Like you just can't talk about the record without him. And again, we've worked with great people. I mean, I love like Will Putney's an awesome dude, and like has a really, really cool sound and a really cool approach to music. And I think a lot of it too is just like I think had matured to a point that we knew how to work with the producer, how like like you hear it in sports a lot, like being coachable. I think like it's not like we were ever like, no, Will, screw you, like your ideas suck. But I think we often didn't know like what to do with some of his ideas, and I think it's been it's just really cool to see how it all kind of came together with Dan on this one. And I think that it will be doing many more together. It's actually it's kind of crazy because I think when Dan's always been like a huge part of Spirit Box too, and the success you see of Spirit Box, you can't talk about Spirit Box without talking about Dan's contributions, and he I think with Spirit Box, like working, I think especially like musically working with Mike Stringer, I think they just really kind of like both taught each other a lot of different stuff about how to approach metal, to where it's very apparent working with Dan now, as opposed to like when we first met him a long time ago, that like he's just grown a lot, as a musician, in so many ways, to where it's cool to see where he's at now. And we just learned a lot from him this process. And it was just very apparent that he grew a lot over the course of the Spirit Box project, which probably comes as a surprise to no one, since that band kind of took the world by storm, during the pandemic. But yeah.
Hell yeah. So how'd the track list for the album come about? Did you guys write the opener to be the opener, closer to be the closer, just shuffle around and see what fits? What was that process like?
No, it was like, I think both the opener and the close. Okay, so I think we always knew that SUPERBLOOM, I forget the demo title of it, but I think we always knew that SUPERBLOOM would be like the closer, because it just had that drawn out kind of feel to it. And I think we knew the moment Offworlder was done, we knew it was like the intro song. I mean, I know there's a build up before it, but that's kind of like, that's part of the concept record. Is, I don't know if you noticed, but if you were to listen to the album front to back and then let it start at the beginning again, it would be like you just kind of completed a circle.
Love when bands fucking do that shit.
And so the first song's function on SUPERBLOOM, I would say, is more or less just like to kind of complete the circle, if you will. But the first, like the full on song, is Offworlder, and just the moment that we finished that song, it was like, oh, this has all the energy of like of an album opener, So that was pretty apparent to us pretty quickly.
Makes sense.
Good. Fuck yeah. So would you be able to tell us where your headspace is at while you're creating this record?
Yeah. Aliens.
They're real.
Thinking about aliens, thinking about the paranormal, thinking about astral projection, thinking about life not originating on Earth, thinking about all the stories and beliefs that we've held for so long as a culture, maybe not being the only way of interpreting reality. The idea that we might that even what it means to be the human species, because there was a lot of there's other type, like Homo sapien type of species, Neanderthals and what have you, and wondering like, well, why are we the species that's still here? What happened to the other ones? What became of them? Are we like maybe a hybrid of that and something that we, are we like a missing link of sorts, as a species? So kind of just asking a lot of or I guess race. I think species would be the broader term, the human race, I guess. But yeah, so a lot of that, a lot of what if, kind of engaging like that inner child, like allowing ourselves to really just have fun with it, and like, be nerdy, a lot of nerdiness for sure, a lot of like, learning about like, weird inconsistencies and like the human genome, and like what does it mean and what could it mean, and just a lot of what ifs, and kind of, instead of, I think the easy thing to do a lot of times in life is to just be like, to expect all the explanations of situations to be banal, but in the case of this record, like embracing just a lot of like fun possibilities. So
yeah,
for sure.
I love it.
Hell yeah.
So this question should be super quick. Off the top of your head, I want you to describe this album for new listeners in 3 words, no more, no less.
I describe it aliens. I would describe it as ancient. I would describe it as forest. Those would probably be the main. Yeah, it takes place in Northern California, where I grew up, and it's a very beautiful but very strange part of the earth, a place on the earth that is kind of, even in this country, isn't very well known. I think when people think of California, they typically think of like beaches and movie stars and palm trees and stuff, but it's none of that. Where I grew up is it's kind of more like what you would think of when you think of like Oregon or the Pacific Northwest, and happens to be like the most paranormal place in the world as far as like alien sightings, and even like the Bigfoot mythology comes from there and stuff. And so forest, aliens, ancient, I guess. Yeah.
All right.
Hell yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Perfect. So are you able to touch on any particularly challenging or standout moments from the creation of this record, positive or negative?
Yeah. Gosh. I mean, it's kind of weird to say, but I think like our van wreck was a big part of the record. I think after the van wreck, I think we embraced more of a like, whatever we do, it's got to be different, it's got to be daring, it's got to be bold. I think surviving that van wreck just really is something that made us like, just made us really like hungry to change it all up, to not just be satisfied with another Silent Planet record, but to make some very bold kind of changes, and dare ourselves to like ask what would happen if we were to kind of take all the pieces off the board, and say like, yeah, songs don't have to start with riffs, or like not every song needs like a shreddy spot, not every song needs like a bunch of like spoken word type vocals, or just whatever stuff that we've been known for in the past, or even I think a big one would be singing, being like me to, like, just Dan really encouraged me to like step into the role of like the singer, and not kind of just like pass that off to my bandmates, but actually like embrace my voice, which would not have been possible without Melissa Cross. She's just an amazing force, and is my godmother, and is like literally just none of the record as we know it would have even remotely happened without her as well. And so yeah, it's crazy though to say that. It's like, man, we are just like, so we're so indebted to so many different people. And I think the more that I think any of us in any part of our life, if you really look at it and examine it, you realize like we're indebted to the people around us and the people that love us. And it doesn't mean that we're not capable of doing good and difficult things by ourselves, but I think that more often than not, we there's somebody behind us, whenever we're succeeding. And this record, I think because it feels like a success, I'm immediately kind of like how, because I know it's not just us, and definitely Melissa teaching me how to use my voice and to embrace my voice. Rory actually from Dayseeker was a big part of that too. He would always tell me, because I'd always compare myself to him, and I'm like, you're a singer, like Rory. Have you seen Dayseeker live? Have y'all seen Dayseeker before?
I haven't seen them live. Yes. I really want to.
And we also talked to Rory about Dark Sun. So,
and you did, okay, yeah, because it's like Rory's the kind of voice that like people stop when he sings. People are like, what's going on? Like listening to Rory sing is an experience, and he I would often be like, I could never do what Rory does. Like you could lock me in a room for 12 hours a day and say, you can't come out so you can sing like Rory, and I will die in that cell. He what he does is very difficult to do. It's why, it's why not a lot of people can. And do that. I think everyone would sing like him if they could. And so I would be like, I can't do what you do. I'm not a singer. And Rory would always encourage me and tell me like that that my voice was unique, and that having a unique quality to your voice is something that is pretty much as important as is pretty much as important as being able to belt at all these notes and do all these like crazy runs and stuff, but just being able to like express yourself in a way that feels original to people. And that really resonated with me, and that really encouraged me to start singing, because as long as I held myself to the standard of sing as well as Rory, it's like I would probably constantly disappoint myself. But once I kind of learned that it's not so much about like being the best as much as it is like being the most like honest and the most unique with your voice. And I think that just Rory kind of showed me that, and I think that shows up in our record in some ways.
Oh yeah, and I love that you keep shouting out all of the people that have benefited you and helped you with your success in past records and on this one as well. There are definitely bands out there that try to play it off as they're doing it all themselves, but there are not many bands that are doing it all themselves. Like, let's just be honest.
I think we all are very like indebted to the goodness of each other, and it's just that's the human experience. It's like we need each other, and we need to we all have to like embrace that just the concept that like no one can do, we don't do life by ourselves, and that's the beauty of it. It's like we are just the human story is one of community, and I think in America we do have such a profound, I think that we all have such a profound kind of focus on like being the most, I think because it's like so common that like we believe in like the hero narrative of like getting things get like somebody by themselves overcomes impossible odds and changes the world, and while like absolutely we can overcome things, it's rarely, if you are really looking at it, it's not like one person doing it all themselves. And anyone who doesn't really recognize that is kind of missing the point.
Absolutely.
Sure.
So I think that all that is to say, I Rory and Melissa and Dan, specifically those three people, are such a big part of it. So it's just such a massive part of this whole experience of being in this band, and making this album happen. And there's a lot of other people too. There's a YouTube channel that I should shout out, since that's like seems to be become the spirit of this podcast. It's called the Why Files.
Why Files?
WHY Files. Mm-hmm. And it's a dude and a goldfish talking about like a bunch of what ifs. It's crazy because in the time that like I discovered it, I feel like this podcast has blown up recently. I guess I'm being that guy right now. I'm like I listened to Why Files before it was cool or something. But
I'm a real fan.
Yeah, like yeah. But yeah, it is a very cool podcast, and it's just it's about it's just about a lot of like what ifs, and it just kind of like talks about a lot of crazy like stories of different folks, and the way that they've changed history with discoveries, and it gets into some stuff you've heard of, like Tesla's whatever, but a lot of stuff you've probably never heard of, like just really crazy fringe conspiracy theories about, like, some of it's kind of like, yeah, there's no way. Like, one's called the dead internet theory, that everything on the internet that you find is just dead people or something, and it's like really bizarre, crazy stuff. And some of it's like about the electric universe, and how like electricity might be actually, like when we talk about gravity, that we're actually just talking about electricity in a different form and stuff. And a lot of it like helped me with like understanding, especially on the alien sort of like ancient civilization thing. Just helped me to understand a lot of kind of more fringe stuff that you're not going to hear in a university, but some of it there's real evidence to it. And the guy kind of throughout the podcast sort of goes through, like, oh, so this, this could be true. And sometimes, his theories or the crazy stuff he talks about, ultimately he ends up kind of proving to not be true, because it's just kind of absurd on its face. But a lot of it is just a lot. It kind of opened my brain to the kind of what if type of thinking that I think helps a lot with that. So yeah, Why Files, cool podcast if someone's really interested in the whole paranormal thing.
All right,
for sure, it's fucking awesome.
And for the last couple questions, we're gonna shift completely away from music and go straight to death row.
Boom.
So if you're on death row, what would your last meal be with drink?
Oh man, I think about that a lot. Like I love that you phrase it that way, because I actually phrase it the same way when I ask someone about favorite food. I guess what it means, we're both very dramatic people.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Because it's such a dramatic way to say, what's your favorite meal, right?
Literally.
But,
yeah.
I mean, of course, outside of like, if I'm going to be cheeky and be like a meal that has the key to my cell, kind of thing, to get free. But there's a ramen called, it's a place in LA called Daikakuya. There's like 5 of them. The OG ones in Little Tokyo, and they have I'm not a vegan, but they have a vegan sesame ramen that is just. And I love ramen. I've had a lot of, whenever we go to Japan, I'm just eating ramen, and I love ramen. But
yeah,
this place Daikakuya has spicy sesame vegan ramen, and it is without a doubt the best thing I've ever had in my life. And then if you're talking dessert, I feel kind of like cheesy saying this, because it's like a corporate thing. So I probably, like, I've had it, don't get me wrong, I've had a lot of fancy ice cream, like a lot of like, oh, like this is like the best ice cream in LA kind of spot. But it actually just Cold Stone has a cake. You're shaking your head, you might know what I'm talking about. They have a cake batter ice cream, and if you put a brownie in it, it's just I swear to God, the best thing I've ever had.
It's
in my
fucking
life.
crazy. My friend
nothing has ever come close to Cold Stone cake batter, put a brownie in it. It's just like perfect.
Yeah. Yeah. I usually get that, but one time my friend was like, you should add like fucking cookies to it. Worst decision of my life.
Yeah.
Fucked the entire thing up.
I've learned that. Yeah, you really can't screw with it. The only thing I will say, sometimes seasonally they have an oatmeal cake batter, and that actually works pretty well too. Because as someone who I like, oatmeal cookies are my favorite. Like, yeah so good.
Yeah. Fuck,
I feel like we have the same taste palette when it comes to sweetness. I'm getting that vibe.
Yeah, for real. How do you feel about tiramisu?
Oh, I love tiramisu. Oh my
Fuck
gosh.
yeah. Okay.
Tiramisu and oh yeah, some fancy Italian places will do that bananas where where like you put bananas, you cut up a banana, then you put it in brown sugar in a pan. I forget the name of the dish,
Um,
but it's
uh,
so good.
Banana Foster?
No, it's just like it's like bananas then on ice cream. It might be similar to bananas Foster though. I'm not sure,
Okay.
but
Okay.
yeah.
I feel
Okay,
like I
wait,
should
so
know
wait,
this.
can I get your responses to that? Because I'm kind of curious now, like what y'all would go with.
Oh my God, Death Row meal?
Yeah, Death Row meal.
Shane already
Spaghetti
has his, let me
marinara.
think. That's fucking it.
Yep.
Mine would probably be there's this small Thai spot by me. And I really like their sweet Thai basil tofu. It
Ooh.
comes with like obviously tofu, bunch of onions, bunch of sweet peppers, and then like a side of
Okay.
rice and like a really rich broth that it's in, and it's fucking
That
it's
sounds
my favorite thing
amazing.
ever. Yeah, and I usually get like a fucking large Thai tea with it as well. It's like
Oh,
my favorite meal ever. I love it so much.
big fan of Thai tea. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Thai tea with boba is like I'm such a big fan of that stuff. I
Yeah.
can't even explain it.
Don't get me started. Don't get me started on fucking boba.
I I it's funny because I told someone I love Thai tea with boba, and they're like, "Well, those are technically different cultures, whatever." I'm like, I don't know, but the combination's so good, so
It
good.
works. Exactly. Yeah.
It's so good. It's insane.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, for sure. So if you could live in one fictional world for a week, where would you live?
One fictional world for a week.
Yep.
Hmm. I feel like this is so basic of me to say, but probably Harry Potter.
Yeah.
Like I feel like J.K. Rowling has become like not her best self, which kind of sucks because
Yeah.
but I grew up on Harry Potter, and I think just the Hogwarts and that whole thing, I'm a Ravenclaw, and
Just about to ask. Damn it.
just I would definitely be hanging out, doing Ravenclaw activities, being like I feel like they're like I feel like most emos are probably Ravenclaws, right? Because they're like kind of like the dark, angsty kind of like super into like books and being emo kind of people, I think.
Yeah.
So I just doing the Ravenclaw thing. What about y'all? What fictional worlds would you choose?
Diary of a Wimpy Kid.
Oh my God. Oh my God. I usually say something and it's what did I say last? Oh, Frog and Toad.
Oh.
Frog and Toad. I'd live with
Frog and Toad. Oh,
Yeah.
that's cute.
Right?
I grew up on Frog and Toad. I love Frog
Me
and Toad.
too.
Oh,
yeah.
It's really cute.
I'd fucking like kill to hang out with them for a day. I love them so much.
Yeah, Frog and Toad is really sweet. Big fan.
Big fan.
Shane, what's yours?
Diary of a Wimpy Kid.
Diary of a Grumpy Kid?
Wimpy Kid.
Wimpy Kid. I feel like I've heard of that, but I don't know what that is really.
It's
just a kid?
yeah, it was the popular book series when I was growing up.
Okay.
So
what about that universe is like unique? Or like what distinguishes that universe from the world as we know it?
There's really nothing that distinguishes it. It's just a kid that goes to high school, and it's commentary about like bullying, in school and whatnot.
Wait, so why do you want to be in that world?
I don't know.
Yeah, Shane.
That sounds like our world.
That's what I'm fucking
playing
saying.
video games and not giving a fuck. That sounds pretty awesome.
Okay.
The
Loaded
kid,
diaper, I guess.
Loaded, and you're in a world where Loaded Diaper, the band exists, but just to go back a couple years where they were like, I'm not that old, but like where I'm still in school, don't have a lot of responsibilities. It sounds pretty awesome right about now.
Yeah, no, that's fair.
Yeah.
It's funny because it's like I would, when you say universe, like at first I was gonna say Lord of the Rings, but then I was thinking about like the nature of that world, and I'm like, pretty good chance that you'll just get like cut in half with an axe by an orc,
For sure, yeah.
I think Harry Potter, especially if you're at Hogwarts, feels like fun, but also like safe enough that you're not going to be like totally freaked out the whole time.
Yeah.
Exactly. Plus, you have.
I probably wouldn't leave
side.
Hogwarts though, because Voldemort's out there doing sketchy stuff.
Absolutely.
Post Voldemort, though, you're good.
True. Yeah. Well, I don't know though. What happens after Voldemort? Like, how do we know that Neville Longbottom doesn't become the next Voldemort? You know,
Don't put that on Neville. He would never fucking do that. He's a sweetheart.
it's the guys you never expect. You know.
Yeah, but he would never. Oh my god, he probably would. Wait a fucking minute. Stop it! Don't fucking say that about my boy.
Who knows? Or yeah, I don't know, maybe more likely the ones like Goyle, Crab and Goyle, right?
And Goyle, yeah, little dweebs.
Yeah.
I'm glad that you're also a Potter nerd. That's great.
Oh, of course. I have fucking Gryffindor behind me, so
that is good. Okay, that is Gryffindor.
Yeah. I got a lot of stuff going on behind me. Yeah.
Yeah.
I love it. I love it. I see Dooku, no justice, no peace up there. It looks like a sign you made.
Yeah.
And you got, is it Pangea or Pandora? Can't tell.
Pandora? What are you talking about? Which one?
I'm just looking on the
This?
Yeah, or does it say random?
This is the apocalypse. Fandom. That's fucking water parks.
Fandom. Oh, you have the This or the Apocalypse poster.
Yeah, I'm fucking friends with Ricky, so I have to feel like it's part of the ritual.
I love them. I love Ricky. I think Ricky could correct me if I was wrong, but I think I was on the last This or the Apocalypse tour.
No.
Yeah. I believe it was the last one that they ever did. So it was a Sleeping Giant headliner in 2014. It was actually Silent Planet's first like nationwide tour where like we played like 20 shows. I think we had done like a 14 run, but first time that we kind of went, you know, north, south, east, and west in the United States. And it was Sleeping Giant headliner. This or the Apocalypse was direct support. The Phineas was the 3 of 5. Those Who Fear was the 2 of 5, and we were the 1 of 5. We were the opener. And yeah, This or the Apocalypse was on that tour, and I learned a lot from Ricky. Then that's actually where I met Melissa Cross too, because Melissa was working with Ricky. But that band was so amazing, so underrated, and I mean, it kind of still exists in an iteration as Hawk now, I guess.
Hawk.
But
yeah, they completely rebranded. It's a lot clearer what they want to do with their sound now versus back then. You know, he was a kid. He's doing shit.
And I think I mean, obviously, Ricky's he seems like obviously a very integral part of Ice Nine Kills, and so I'm sure that keeps him really busy, being that
a little too busy in my
they're
opinion.
like one of the biggest bands on earth. But
well, that is all the questions we have for you today. Is there anything that you would like to plug?
No, I just you know, if you're in LA, try Daikukuya ramen, vegan sesame, spicy vegan sesame ramen. Our record comes out on the 3rd of November, which is in a week. Man, it's almost the end of the year. That's crazy.
I'm saying, right?
Yeah, meditate. I'm gonna plug meditation. Check it out. It can be really good for you. It might just simply learning how to be and hold the silence you might find some answers in there for anyone listening. So hey, thank you very much for having me.
Of course. Well, thank you for sound. It's been Garrett from Silent Planet, and we have been the Good Noise Podcast.